Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Jerry with Oakley Trucking. I was going to do a video that I've had a lot of requests for is on preventive maintenance. And boy, being an owner operator, preventive maintenance is way better than on the side of the road maintenance. And the worst maintenance is the wrecker uh, breakdown maintenance with a strange shop that you're pretty much maybe a blessing, maybe a victim to. So, anyhow, we want to prevent those breakdowns. We want to do preventive maintenance. My history in the military around helicopters and airplanes and stuff, you guys are no aircraft or around any of that. Every component on aircraft, whether it's a helicopter or fixed wing or no matter what it is, has times for different components and different uh, parts of the aircraft, and they do it by hours. And we don't really do big truck stuff by hours, we do it by miles. Some of that may be done by just how hard it's being used, too. Uh, Beating dirt roads in the oil fields or on a farm operation might be totally different than over the road trucking. So, with that being said, you got to consider that. But as a rule with Oakley, I would say that some of the things I'm going to go over with you are really important to do the preventive maintenance and have good, reliable shops that you can rely on. So I lube my truck. And on the newer trucks they have less grease zerks than they used to. But I lube my truck every 15,000 miles. I also lube my trailer when I lube the truck. And even though it's Oakley's trailer, they'll pay you back for it. Speedco or whoever does your lube job will charge you an extra $15 or $20 or something to lube the trailer. And that's just good insurance for Oakley. And you don't have to get it to Little Rock all the time to do that. So that's a good thing. So on mine, I have a 2011 Freightliner Cascadia DD15. I just turned over 900,000 miles. And knock on wood, the engine, the major components of the engine have never been into. They've been inspected, but they've never been into. So I've been very fortunate. I do a full PM every 20 to 25,000 miles. I do all the fuel filters, oil filters. I run Rotella T5 synthetic blend oil. And I check all that stuff on a daily basis to make sure there's no problems. Also, on the DD15s, when they're new, they do overhead at the first 50,000 to 100,000 miles, and then every 500,000 miles. I just had an overhead run on mine because I just put new injectors and all that in over the holiday. And my overhead had not been run since 400,000 miles. So it'd been a good 500,000 miles. And it was still within specs. These DD15s are a completely different animal than the Series 60 Detroits, which were great engines. But in my opinion, once you get the DD15s, how do we say it, unneutered, and they can run right, they're an awesome engine. In fact, my injectors, the wiring harness to my injectors, the injector harness, and we went ahead and replaced the injector cups, the injectors, and all that, and the main sensor harness, the engine. That was all deteriorated so badly that when they took the bolts off of the injector harness, the end of the harness crumbled. And my main sensor harness that was going through the engine, which is a real pain in the butt to change, that engine harness was deteriorated terribly. Of course, it's coming on 10 years old. So, I mean, that's understandable. It's time to be done. And if I hadn't have done it, I would have started having problems. So preventive maintenance type thing is big, important on that. Drivetrain. A lot of you guys with Oakley, if you don't buy a brand new truck, you're buying a truck that's 2015, 16, somewhere in that neighborhood, that's got 300,000 or 400,000 miles on it. You're still going to have maintenance, and you're still going to need to watch for things that start having problems in that 300,000 to 500,000 mile range. I've already went through all that stuff on mine. I went through the whole front end, all the bushings, all the bearings, all the seals. The drive, both drives have been completely gone through, all the bearings, all the seals. And another thing that U-joints, input shafts, output shafts, seals, bearings, and all that stuff. Start watching for those leaks when you do your pre-trip inspection. Start looking for slinging oil or wet wheel seals and all that kind of stuff. You can take out a rear end pretty darn fast if you ignore those things. Having a good alignment, having 3-axle alignment done. I do mine every year, and I check it when I do that every year. Even if it doesn't need it, I still take it in and have it checked, make sure we're still in alignment. Your alignment has a lot to do with your wear on your drive line, has a lot to do with your wear on your bearings and seals in your rear ends and your front end. Also, I did another video on the tire pressure monitoring system. That's really important. Man, you can get a lot of miles out of your tires if they're properly aired up, maintained, rotated, and all that. So I rotate my drives about every 50,000 miles, and I'll get, the last set of drive tires I had 286,000 on the set of drives. I get around 160 to 170,000 on my steers. And those are Michelin, the Michelin X-Line Energy, and they're rotational. But after it gets down, after the first 50,000 miles of those, then you can rotate your steer tires, and it doesn't matter which direction that arrow is going. So that makes a big difference too. Something that has saved me before on my other truck, my old Red Maverick truck, was oil sampling. I do OPS oil sampling, and it costs about 25 bucks to do an oil sample. And I sample my oil every time I change it. Every 25,000 miles I sample it. And at Speedco and some of these other places that do bench sampling, there's a couple of things they don't sample for. They don't sample it for fuel dilution. And that's really important. You start having an injector cup leak or whatever, and you're starting to get fuel into your oil, or you're starting to get water into your oil from injector cups. You can wipe out a motor, you can wipe out bearings pretty fast with that. So you don't want to do that. Anyhow, then also I have a picture linked to a sample of one of my oil samples. OPS actually called me the last few times I've sampled, and they said, we want to confirm this, that you have 900,000 miles on this engine. It's never been rebuilt. It's the original engine, and we're showing virtually little to no engine wear as far as wear metals go. That's awesome. Detroit, when they come out with the DD15, touted it being a 1,000,000-mile engine, and knock on wood, I hope it lasts that long. But right now, my wear metals are not a problem at all. So if you take care of it, and you're careful.
First Alert Chief Meteorologist Ron Hurst, a new station alert has arrived for your area.
You'll do really well with it. If you run into low oil pressure, low oil levels, you don't change your oil on time or whatever, it could cost you a lot of money to rebuild a DD15. Some of the other local guys, some of my buddies have rebuilt theirs for different reasons. And you're talking about $35,000 to rebuild a DD15, an in frame. That's not even out of frame. That's an in frame. So be careful with that. I also oil sample my transmission and both my rear ends once a year. And they're all great. So that's another thing to do, is that oil sampling. It's like an x-ray of your truck, of the inside of the components of your truck that you can't see. You're getting guidance from them and the wear metals and all that's going on. They detect dirt, they detect water, they detect wear metals, they detect contaminants of all kinds. So, guys, if you're going to be an owner operator and own your own truck, you need to be oil sampling your truck to know what's going on. It's like getting an MRI of your truck, of the major components. Each rear end is going to cost you between $5 to $6 grand. If you have to put, and not to mention a tow bill and the downtime. And the in frame is going to take anywhere nowadays from a week to a month downtime, plus the $30,000 it takes to do one. So this stuff is the most important thing to worry about. And like I always said, or I didn't always say it, but it's always been said, that chrome is great, but chrome won't get you home. Preventive maintenance, and things can happen. Catastrophic events can happen at any time. But you getting a low tire, not knowing it, running a tire, tearing off a fender, downtime, roadside call, the whole deal is just wasted money. It's just wasted money. Having a tire pressure monitor system is awesome. As soon as that tire starts going low, you're going to get an alarm. As soon as there's a problem, you're going to get an alarm. That's the way with oil sampling, and make sure that, especially the guys that are in a lot of dirt, some of the end dump guys are in a lot of nasty coal type dirt. Make sure you're changing your air filters. Keep an eye on them when you do your PMs. I change mine twice a year. I've done a lot of work to my truck and it breathes a little better right now. So it needs a good, fresh air filter. That engine's got to breathe good. So when you save back your money for PMs and doing all your maintenance, if you're handy and you can do a lot of this stuff yourself, that is awesome. A lot of guys aren't, though. And also on their maintenance issues, if you have bought a truck that has a warranty, it's got DEF and all that stuff on it, make sure your warranty covers your DEF system. Also, on that subject with warranties, if you have a warranty, make sure that if you have a check engine light come on or you have something else happen, that you get it addressed immediately, because it tags in your ECM that they'll hook up to every time there's been that event, when it started and how many times a day it was happening since then. If you have a low oil pressure light come on, flashes check engine, you don't address it, goes on, you spin your main bearings or something, you finally get into the shop or it's on the hook of a wrecker and you get in there and they hook it up to the ECM and they're going to see that the first time it had low oil pressure was 2 weeks ago, and it's had it every day since then. When you come to a stop sign to an idle and it has no oil pressure or less than 10 pounds oil pressure, it's washing out your bearings right there. If you ever, and I always idle, this old Detroit thing, I always idle my truck up. I never let it set at low idle. I always idle at about 700 to 800 RPM, no matter what. Because at low idle, it needs to maintain oil pressure. You need to look at having around 20 pounds of oil pressure all the time that truck's running. If it goes down below 10 pounds of oil pressure, you can sit there for 10 hours at really low oil pressure and you can wash out bearings in 10 hours. So a lot of guys have been asking for information about this kind of stuff because and it's back to, I was off a bunch of time this last year because I spent a bunch of money on my truck. I did a lot of maintenance on my truck. It's almost a 1,000,000-mile truck. It was time. I spent a lot of money on my truck this last year. I spent $15,000 during the Christmas break. So you need to plan for it and manage your money and manage your time. And it's better to have it across the road at the shop or down the street at the shop, and you're sitting at home and you can run around, do whatever you want to do during the holidays, than it is on the side of the road somewhere with a real expensive wrecker bill. I hope this video helps you guys, the new owner operators and the guys that are looking to come to Oakley. This is the real stuff. Everybody's going to face it. There's no one that's not going to be faced with maintenance issues. I hope you enjoy it. Have a good day. Thank you.